InDigital is on a mission to improve the 911 industry. Our goal is to create something better to go above and beyond the current standards. Our passion for creating the most advanced, well-designed solutions led to our position as an industry leader in next-gen core services. For the millions of calls processed over our emergency IP networks, to our Text for 911 solution, Texty, to our disaster recovery and backup solution, Mevo, it's easy to see we love what we do. For more information, check us out at www.indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 337 of Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and I want to, right off the bat, say thank you very much to all of the new patrons who have jumped on recently to support everything that I'm doing. As you know, I am on my own now with Within the Trenches Media, and it is crazy. It has been crazy busy. But it's been good. I'm on my second week now, on my own, and whoa, it has been nuts, but it has been good. I'm excited, and it's been excellent. So thank you all very much for the support. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do without all of you. So thank you so much. Also, pretty soon you're going to be seeing a green screen that's behind me to hide a lot of the stuff that's in back of me, and, you know, give a little more of a pro feel to it. And it's airing out right now because that screen has that brand new smell, but it's not like a brand new car smell. No, it's a different brand new smell that actually was giving me a headache, myself and my son, when we were testing it out. So that'll come later after it's been aired out in the garage. But again, I'm very excited to be doing everything that I'm doing and to have all these amazing guests come on to just talk about so many different topics within public safety. And I am very excited to do this episode. This is part 2, actually. The first time we did it, there ended up being some issues with the audio, but I'm glad that we're back and we're finally getting a chance to do this. And I'm excited. My guests today are Monica, and she is an executive director of the Colorado 911 Resource Center. She's also the media past president of NENA, and also a guest on the podcast today is Chandy, and she's the COO and GM of Emergency Services with Inteliquent. I'm going to bring them back on the screen here. And hello to the both of you.
Hi. Hey, Ricardo. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So welcome back. As I said, we had some technical issues last time. But, you know, as things happen, it's all right. We're back. We're here. And we're going to get this started. Now, there's a lot of stuff that is going on. Since the last time the both of you were on, there has been all kinds of things going on in the world. One of those main things is a global pandemic that we're living
Right.
through right now, has changed a lot of different things. One of those big changes, which is something that I never thought I would see, but it was done for good reason, of course, because of the pandemic. We want everyone to be healthy and safe. Is the cancellation of the National NENA conference, and that just blew my mind. And again, for good reason, that everything was getting canceled or postponed or whichever. But that's just one of those things that happened, and I mean that affected a lot of us, especially NENA, and as well as Win. I know you guys had sessions and everything planned and events. Before we get into everything, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. How are you guys doing with everything that's going on in the world, but also the fact that we don't get to do that, but there is a solution, and I'll let you guys tell it.
Well, I'm going to let Chandy, because she's been an integral part of all of the planning, because we actually have some events upcoming for the virtual conference that NENA is going to be putting on, and we'll be sharing with you some other exciting things. I know Chandy will be sharing. I mean, Win is now 1 year old. 1 year old.
Very nice.
And we have been doing so many things, webinars, education sessions, just sharing what the Win mission is with others. And our membership is up. And Chandy, maybe you'd like to share with everybody what we're going to be doing at the virtual conference.
Yeah, and what I'd like to say is, because of this pandemic, people are a little down. And so one of the first things we decided to do is have a happy hour. And so we have this virtual happy hour, and we're sending out the invites, to any woman who wants to join. They don't have to be WIN members. They just have to be related to 911 in some way or form. And we're really excited about that. We have some kind of themes on it. It's like, bring your wins to win. So whatever you've been doing in all your centers that you want to share, highlight people, their accomplishments. So it's all about sharing and experiences. So that's something awesome we're going to be doing. And then, of course, as Monica mentioned, the virtual event at National. And in that, we'll be talking a lot about a very important topic, which is mentoring. We have some key speakers lined up, and it's going to be a session that you don't want to miss.
Awesome. No, that sounds really, really good. Again, just another thing that's coming out of the pandemic. I think, of course, there's the bad, but on the other side of it, I think it helped a lot of us think outside the box and try to figure out different ways for us to stay connected. Because I mean, as humans, that's what we thrive on, right? Those connections, that human touch, that being in person and just talking to people. And we had to do it a different way. And here we are, just in doing it like this as well. A lot of us have been involved in tons of webinars, conference calls, all types of things. Of course, it doesn't replace anything in person, but it's what we had to do. And we're doing it. And I think in public safety, it kind of mimics it that way as well. And the fact that we do what we got to do to get the job done and to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. And, interestingly, especially as the country's still going through, whatever you want to call the next wave or this wave or surge, 911 centers are still locked down. They can't have outside people in their centers. And so just like Chandy was saying, how do we bring some upbeat messaging to this whole initiative that we started a year ago? And especially because we miss those connections, we miss those opportunities to socialize. You guys know, as well as any other people that know me, I'm all about sitting and chatting it up with somebody. I love having the in-person contact. And even personally, that's been the biggest challenge for me, is like, oh my gosh, so now I'm hugging my computer screen because I just want to relay a hug to my friends. It's just the most unusual. Who would have thought 6 months ago we'd be sitting in this kind of circumstance? But here's where we are. But to your point, Ricardo, everybody adapts and overcomes. You find different ways to work around the conditions to make sure that we're still delivering the message that we want to deliver that's so important. It's about promoting women in the 911 space, whether they're public or private sector partners, it doesn't matter. And then how do we share their accomplishments? And then how do we provide some tools to help with their professional development? And I know we're going to expand more on that, but that's really what the message is about.
Perfect.
Yeah, the silver lining here is that we're all in telecom, and so we are all familiar with these tools and technologies that we have to use. I mean, all of us are now Zoom experts and WebEx experts and all the different tools. I feel, think about some of the teachers who have never been very high tech, and they have to go through this steep learning curve. And so, for those of us in telecom, this has been, a much easier transition in a way. And with, adding some of the fun things, upbeat things, it kind of softens the blow a little.
No, yeah, I can agree fully. I've got younger kids and stuff, and they're trying to figure out school, and that has been pretty interesting. When everything hit in the beginning, everyone was at home, they're doing that learning and stuff, and in my mind, I'm talking to like my 16-year-old. I'm like, dude, you can do this. It just takes that discipline. I forget that I was a teenager as well at one time, that I didn't have that discipline that I have now, where when I went to college, I did all online because I was working in dispatch. But I had that discipline where I was able to stay on top of everything. Every now and then I would procrastinate because I need that little bit of pressure to push me to do great work, But it's harder for the younger kids, and I'm sure it makes it harder, to your point, Chandy, for the teachers and stuff who have never done that or had to do it at all. So there's strange times, but good times as well.
Definitely some unique stories in the next 5 years for us to share around the table.
Oh yeah, exactly. When we're at a win event or something, and we're there hanging out and chilling, like, you remember back in 2020? Yeah, that was something else.
Yeah.
So, I want to start out with for the audience to have them learn a little more about the both of you. Now, Chandy, I want to start with you. Actually, now you've got quite a list of accomplishments here. I've got some notes and all that I'm looking at, but what I want to start out with really is, kind of where you come from. Now, you grew up in Calcutta, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I grew up in Calcutta, literally my brother, my parents, our focus was all about education and sports, interestingly, which is awesome because, sports teaches a lot of leadership qualities and a lot of, a team, being part of a team and doing things together and all that. So I was a complete tomboy. And it was just a carefree life back then. And through all the sports and athletics and all that, I ended up playing table tennis at the national level in India, which, what is very, very interesting is I came to the US as a student to study. And initially, my whole goal was, how do I get to see all these gorgeous places in the US?
Yeah.
With no money. I came here with zero, literally no money at all, as most immigrants do. And it's like, but I want to go see all these places. So my friends like, you know what, you're so good at table tennis. Why don't you represent the university? And I was like, no, I'm here to study. I'm single-minded. I can't be distracted. And they're like, okay, it's in the summer. It's during the 3 months. Take some time out of it. So I went and I thought, okay, I'll play a couple of games here and there. So I represented the university, played at the state level, won the state. Then I played at the regional level, won the regionals. And then I went into the nationals, and it was held at the U.S. Olympic Training Center, which to me was like, I was overawed staying there with all these top athletes in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Center, Training Center. It was just phenomenal. And what I just could not imagine is winning the entire thing. And it was, on national TV. And So it's been a ride, and each one of these trips, as we were progressing through these tournaments, we were put up at the Marriott by the university, and I was like, I'm in 5-star luxury. I couldn't even imagine as a student with no money. They were putting me up at the Marriott, and I was traveling to all these fabulous cities, and it was just a ride. It was fantastic.
Oh man.
And then of course started at telecom, started in telecom, and it's been as you can imagine, for me, it's been tough. Not only was I a woman in tech, I was a woman in tech with an accent and a minority, and it was just all the different prejudices that I had to face and overcome, and work twice as hard to prove myself. But in the end, it's hard work that pays off.
Right. Now with that, what is it, I guess, that you because I can imagine just the way you're talking about just that last part there, where there was some struggle. You're a woman in 911 in the tech area and all, and you are kind of clawing your way to the top, doing your best hard work, and it shows. You ended up going to the top in several different places. But going back a little bit to your history growing up, is there anything that you took, I guess, from growing up, disciplines or sports or anything like that, that really translated to you coming up in the telco?
Yeah, so it all started, when I was a kid, and my dad has been my biggest role model. So he would always say, and this is back in the day when women were not encouraged to go out of the house. You get married, you don't need higher education. And my dad would always say, you're a woman, you're going to rule the world. When I was a kid, and I was a tiny, and I did not even know what it meant. To me, it was a joke, and it was funny, and yeah. But it stuck, and every time, and he would always say, question the status quo. Do not just accept because society tells you this is how you have to be, that you have to be that way. So just question things. So I've always, everywhere I've questioned all the way through my schooling we were kind of standard middle-class family, but my parents spent all their money sending me to the most expensive school, a really good school, very high discipline school in Calcutta called Modern High School. And fabulous discipline, very strong education. And so right through the beginning, and then they totally encouraged me to come to the US to study and pursue my career and stuff here. So it's, all that has stayed with me. And that's what I do with my kids. And when I see my own daughter, I am so happy with, how she's progressed in life. And my kids are both into sports like we are. And I see how, just when you're in sports also, it's what's known as the equalizer. So it's like when I see their circle of friends, all backgrounds, and they know how to deal with all kinds of people. And it's just so nice. It makes me feel happy.
That is some really, it's solid advice. I mean, I do the same thing with my daughters. So here's an example. We were watching The Greatest Showman, and my 8-year-old daughter Lola is sitting next to me, and I've got my arm around her. I'm just kind of holding her close, and she goes, "I want to be able to do that." And she says, "Do you think I could do that?" And I said, "Baby girl, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. As long as you work hard, you can do it. And I know that you can." And
it's so important. It's so important for young girls to still hear that. Children, period, boys or girls. It's so important for them to hear that message. I grew up in a single parent home. I was raised by my mother. I was the oldest of my brother and I, and she's like, if you want to do it, just put in the work and you can do it. And, that has been, to Chandy's point, that message from my parents is what has guided me my entire professional life. And really, I think if you, as a parent today, if you're instilling those kinds of messages in your kids, they're going to have unprecedented success, for themselves. And that's all you want as a parent.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. That is right on right there. Um, going along with your background, you're moving up in telco world and all, and in emergency services. But I mean, how did you even get into that to begin with? I mean, did you just I want to do that? How did it come to play?
No. So I was in at CenturyLink through several incarnations: US West, Quest, CenturyLink. So a lot of telecom background, right? And then it just happened that I had dabbled a little bit in CenturyLink. There's always going to be some touch of 911, but that was not my focus. And then Intrado came calling. And so they asked me and I was very happy at CenturyLink at that time. So actually, one of their CTOs reached out to me and said they would really like me to interview them. So their CEO pulled me in, and she was a woman too. I don't know if I'm sure Monica knows Mary Hester. So yeah, she pulled me into Intrado, and we basically really. So I had to learn a lot. I was very strong on the operations side, where the 5 nines meant 5 nines, and you do all the practices, operational practices in place, or making sure that systems were always very highly available, and the right agreements were being made across customers, across vendors, and everything. So that was one of my strengths, and that's why they brought me in. To put in a lot of different process improvements, etc. So and then from Intrado, Inteliquent started this business unit and from scratch, and I think this has been my best challenge in my career actually. So they didn't Inteliquent. I don't know how many of you know this, but basically it's the backbone behind the voice infrastructure for T-Mobile. So it's been there for a long time, and we've have a very strong network offering. And so they decided to start a 911 business unit to sit on top of the fabulous nationwide network that we have. And so they've asked me to come, start up this business unit, and it's been an amazing ride. I just love doing it.
Well, and to go along with that ride, I mean, you've also gotten awards and all, throughout the time that you've been doing everything. And 100 global men and women in carrier telecommunications, top 25 most powerful women of Colorado. You also got best woman in global wholesale telecom and others. It just keeps going and going. So kudos to you, but especially for your parents for instilling those just those morals, and also just to keep working hard. I mean, that's what it's all about. Just like Monica with her parents too.
Yeah, so it wasn't just. I mean, those awards are also a lot about it's not just the work and the business, the corporate work that I'm doing. It's basically I spend my weekends, my evenings, ever since especially my kids left home. They're now grown adults now, and so ever since then, I have made it my mission to give back as much as I can to the community. So I do a lot of coaching, mentoring. I'm on several boards, and I try to help, with as much, support. It's the whole lean in and, learn from each other and support and pull other women up that I do a lot of. And I think that's what's being recognized. And it's nice. I mean, to me, that's the icing on the cake. But, I'm doing a lot right now for women on boards. As you know, corporate boards have a very low percentage of women on board. So I spoke in London at a big conference before this pandemic about how all the steps required to get more women on boards, etc. So there's a lot of things that we can impact. And that's what I want. This is my day job, and that's my evening and weekend job.
But I think
Win is, right?
Yeah,
Win is Monica and my weekend and evening job.
Yeah,
literally.
But to the point, I mean, Chandy's being very humble, but really it's so rewarding having watched her receive some of the accolades that she's gotten, that it's not just about the tasks she's doing in her paid job, it's what she's giving back to the industry. And I think not having been as recognized as Chandy, but becoming her friend and knowing this about her, that's the most rewarding part of it, because now you're contributing to the greater good, and that's the best thing. That's the best thing.
That
Thank
is
you.
excellent. Now, switching over to you, Monica, for the audience, a little bit of your background, because I'm looking at your notes here, and there's stuff here that I didn't know. So this is awesome. I mean, so we both started out, and maybe we mentioned this last time when we recorded, but we started out the same time in 2001.
Right. Yep.
That's craziness. I didn't realize that we started out at the same time there.
And I happened into 911 totally by accident.
Mhm.
You know, for 16 years prior to that, I worked in aerospace. I worked for McDonnell Douglas in Southern California. Again, another male dominant leadership kind of culture industry. I was only the second woman promoted to the second mid-level management in the factory. And I was the youngest. So I was a 30-year-old snot-nosed kid just out of, college, and being given a huge amount of responsibility. And I was doing everything I could to learn from the mentors that I had reached out to. And I think, as we go through this conversation, and Chandy and I have spoken many times about it, for me, mentoring is what helped make my professional career. And then why I think it's so fundamentally important as you evolve in your profession, whatever it is, that you have a mentor or somebody that you can reach out to.
Now, when you made that transition, and you're starting out as a 911 telecommunicator, what was that like for you in the beginning then?
Frankly, Ricardo, it was a little bit crazy because, I was used to imagine a 1 mile square factory building with aircraft assembly line. So I was able to get up and move, and I could walk all over the place. I had a team of about 120 employees. And then I come and work in a 911 center, and I'm, stuck to the console with a headset on and training in this new job and listening to how the public treats one another, or, talking to victims of unfortunate circumstances or medical conditions. And it just made me take a whole different view of humanity. And I got to tell you, man, that first year I drank the Kool-Aid big time, and I'm so passionate about 911 now that I'll never do anything different, because I believe in what the 911 system does in this country and worldwide, whatever the 3-digit numbers are, and what a vital resource it is to any community that it exists in, and how can we help these people have the very best experience they can while they're working in this role.
Man, okay, so I have a question, but I have to ask you this first, because looking at your notes here, you moved up pretty fast.
Yeah,
But it looks like you and I became a supervisor also around the same time.
probably.
This is crazy.
We had parallel paths, Ricardo.
Yeah, exactly. So what were some of the earlier calls that do you remember any of your earlier calls, or maybe even your first one? I mean, there's I guess, a lot of people that I talk to, sometimes there's a call that they took that really solidified the fact that 911 was their calling.
Yeah. So we had the community I live in. We have irrigation water ditches, and one particular, as rookies on the team, we worked the overnight shift, right, Ricardo?
Yeah,
We were the graveyard team.
that's right.
And one of the irrigation ditches breached, and it flooded a particular low-lying area in the community. And there were several elderly folks who were on oxygen, and we actually had to get boats into them to get them out, because we couldn't even, the power was going out. I mean, it was just a really odd set of circumstances, and it was so satisfying to be able to help coordinate. I was working the fire console that night, and I was the primary call taker, because like in many smaller centers, the overnight you wear multiple hats.
Mhm.
But I took one of the first calls. I recognized right away what was happening. And it was just the satisfaction of being able to get the right help to people when they needed it, and really make an impact on their ability to survive the event. That did it for me. That night, I went home. My husband at the time, he used to wait up for me. Uh, then he got tired of it, but uh, I came home and I had so much energy. He's like, "What happened to you?" And I told him everything I did about this call, and he goes, "Wow." And I said, "I know, I'm done. This is it. This is a career for me." I think I had only been out of training for maybe 3 months when we got that. So I was still pretty rookie in the career, if you will, but it was so satisfying and gave me such a sense of accomplishment and contributing to the community that I was done. Put a fork in me, I was done, Ricardo.
That I know that feeling. I
Yeah.
definitely know that feeling of when after you've taken that call, you're like, yeah, like that's what
Yeah.
it's all about.
Right. It is.
So you end up moving up, continuing to move up. But what was it though that made you want to continue to move up? I mean, there's a lot of people will, continue to be call takers, or dispatch, whichever. Others will end up moving up to supervisor or certified training officer, a CTO, and some will go all the way up to deputy director or director. What was one of the things that really pushed you to continue moving up and then even get involved with Colorado's
Chapter.
those
Yeah.
chapters? Yeah.
You know, we all can agree that public safety is slower behind industry for the most part. And I'm just saying that in a very blanket kind of general statement. I came from a fast-paced production, manufacturing environment. We were in the 90s, we were learning Japanese manufacturing techniques, quality assurance efforts. And really, as I came into the 911 space and started to see where processes could be developed, quality assurance tools could be implemented, and how we could improve the workers' environment. And then, of course, then that just exponentially created a better customer service experience for the citizen who called. I'm like, man, I can help implement all of these ideas. And I felt really strongly about mentoring and coaching the people who worked for me. And we, at that agency, we hadn't really had that kind of overall global, everybody, team environment. Everybody supports everybody. Everybody gets the same kind of professional development. How do you get them the tools they need to help each of them with their strengths, and then help them work through whatever challenges they have to make them better when they're competing for other positions. And I'm a natural cheerleader of people. So I felt like it was a good fit, and I felt like I could really make a difference. So that's what drove me, because I love seeing people develop.
I think that's one of the big things
Yeah.
In this is wanting to make change and,
Yeah.
and helping others. You both talk. You don't use the word, but in what you were both saying in both of your stories here, there's a lot of mentorship, and that's what you're about, which is good. So as you continue to move on, you end up moving on to be the NENA president, and now you're the immediate past president. So there was a lot of stuff you were doing. Now, I want you to kind of touch a little bit on, and we did an episode on this already, but I just briefly want you to touch on an agreement that ended up that you did. We talked about this at the SBP conference, but if this was one of the big things during your presidency that you did. So if you can just talk about that briefly, please.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have your eyes wide open every time you meet people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that I really learned, and of course, when you're serving on the board of directors, you have a lot of opportunity to touch a lot of people across the industry. And I had this opportunity to talk to some of our international partners, right? And I'm like, really, we're all doing the very same thing, whether we call it 911, 999, 112, 000. whatever the digits are, we're still in emergency number services, period,
Right.
the end. And we actually very much function very similarly. And I sat down and had a conversation with some of these folks, and I'm like, we need to work together and share best practices from a global perspective so that we can all deliver better service to the citizens and to our own citizens who are now traveling to these other destinations. You know, the population of the globe is more transient now than it's ever been in its entirety. So how can we leverage that relationship to make sure that when maybe my family members over in Europe or in Australia or in wherever have a very similar or understand what the system will do for them when they call the 000 number, right? Or the 112 number.
Mhm.
And we sat down and talked for hours, and we ended up bringing together a whole group of people, and we created this international consortium, if you will. The group is called oh my goodness, the acronym is CSIPS. Oh, Collaborative International Public Safety Group. So that was probably the most satisfying thing. And we are, even today, we still meet every other week. Because think about the very similar things that happened to each of us during this pandemic. As an international group, we put out a pandemic best practices for your call center and put that out to the press. And now we're working on a best practice paper, white paper, if you will, from an international perspective. So, sorry, I rambled
Right
on a
there.
little bit.
No, that's fine. That's amazing, because that's what I want people to know as well, because
Yeah.
there are some that know that this happened and others that don't. Our episode came out and a lot of people learned from there. That is big, to be able to bring these organizations together
Yeah.
and really come together to do something, because
Yeah.
we're all going for the same goal, right?
That's right.
And it was just awesome to be able to do this. And before we get to talking about WIN, I do want to mention one of the other things that you have done as well is you joined, became an advisor of public safety for Rapid SOS. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that and what that means?
Yeah, having 911 now to my blood, you're always looking at the industry to see who the disruptors are. And we all know the huge impact on location accuracy that Rapid SOS has brought to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And having spoken to their CEO, their CTO, and really many of the people on the public safety team, I really felt like this was an opportunity to contribute to a company who was really doing, at the time, bleeding edge things and bringing the one thing as a 911 center that we asked, that was the most critical piece of information that was not being delivered at a high degree of accuracy. And we knew from the 911 perspective, if we could get location right, we could really start making some dramatic impact. And so I became a part of their team this year.
Nice. So
in an advisory capacity, yeah.
What does that mean for you then in an advisory capacity? So are there, and I don't know how much you can share, but just hypothetically, is it, a meeting that you end up joining, and because of where you come from in your background, that just kind of, spitballing ideas, or just different ways of protocols, anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And my, with my my current paying job as the director for the Colorado 911 Resource Center, I've been able to interact with the different states and understand what's happening across the country. Having managed a center, I know the operations side pretty well. And so it just gives them an opportunity to use me as a sounding board. I've been heavily involved in legislative efforts here in Colorado. So even though we're a home rule state in Colorado and our 911 system is managed under the Public Utilities Commission, there are other states that manage their systems that way. So it's bringing to the table an opportunity to have governance discussions, what can really impact operations, whether it's maybe a different product offering or something like that. Just, again, it's kind of an advisory role that I'm filling right now.
That is awesome. That is very cool to be able to have you there to throw your years of knowledge and experience into what it is that they're doing as well. I think that's one of the best things about industry partners who have those on an advisory board that come from public safety.
That's
Because,
right.
I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah,
Ones who
100%.
understand the most.
Yep.
So why not have them? Now, moving on from there. Now, Chandy, this one's for you to start out with. I want to know about WIN. Tell me about Women in 911 with NENA. How did this all come about, and why is this such a passion, even for the both of you? But how did this start out?
So I used to go to a lot of the standard APCO NENA conferences, but I always had my technology hat on, and I would attend all the technical track, right? And I started noticing there was this other track that was always so well attended and packed and very, conversational, etc. And I used to wonder who attends all those tracks all the time. And it's like packed. And here we're on the technology side. Of course, there were just a very few women. On the other side, there were lots of women and people that I recognized, like Monica and a whole lot of other leaders in the 911 space. So I said, I should go attend one of those, a couple of those. So I went to a couple of them, and I was blown away by how, people would be sharing their experiences, and others would talk about, how they overcame those challenges. And pretty much a lot of the conversation was about, the stress in the environment, the lack of resources, and, PTSD. And we know 20% of 911 dispatchers suffer PTSD. So all these kind of topics, and there was such animated conversations, and it was just awesome sitting in and listening to this. And I would attend a couple of different of these conferences, and I'd go talk to some of the women, and I'd ask them, okay, you're sharing all this in this conference. When you leave the conference, what resources do you have until the next conference to be able to, get back? If something occurs, where do you go to share your ideas or get suggestions, etc.? They were like, no, we don't have it. I mean, literally, there was no other resource as such, like a women's safe place where they could have these conversations. And so after a couple of these conferences, I said, this is something I need to pitch to NENA. So that's when I pitched the idea to NENA. And I was so happy to hear that, they immediately caught on, and they said, this sounds amazing. Why don't you connect with Monica Million? And she was soon going to be the next NENA president. And I was like, this is perfect. I had a lot of respect for Monica, watching her in all these events and all that. So I said, this would be perfect. So here are two Colorado women. We met for lunch, and the rest is history. She represented the public sector. I represented the private sector. It was just the perfect union. And we started talking about, what we wanted to do, what our mission, vision, objectives was going to be, and how we were going to kick it off, what committee we wanted to put in place with the rest of the 911 women leaders. And there's been no looking back.
Wow.
Monica, you want to add any thoughts to that?
I cannot even describe how momentous the moment was that I met Chandy. We met for lunch, and we were both so giddy, rapid fire, feeding off each other. She's like, Monica, we could do this. And I'm like, and Chandy, we could do this. And it was just, there was so much energy surrounding the conversation. Obviously, we both have a great passion for it. And it was right on time. It was perfectly right on time. And our success at, I know we'll talk about in the next couple of minutes, just demonstrates how right on time it was, and that the satisfaction that we're finally providing tools and a platform for people to go and have the things that they can take away from events and go back to and refer to when they're in their day-to-day jobs. That's the most important. When Chandy talks about the event, the conference, the whatever would have the information, but then you wouldn't have anything to take back with you. And it's just like, okay, now what? Well, how do we help encourage these women to develop themselves professionally if they only hear the message one time a year? That's not good development technique.
Right. No, from the time.
Yeah. So let me share an example.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I wanted to share one example which clearly, shows the value of what WIN brings to the table. So one of the, I was at the NENA SBP Standards and Best Practices Conference, and we had a WIN session that evening. Now, realize we have been through all day, 2 days of, packed sessions, technology. These are the new policies. These are the standards. And you had all these experts in the 911 industry sitting on those panels talking about how they're going to lead the industry and all that. And so here we went to this WIN session, strong, sharp people that Monica and I know who are, women leaders in 911. So we're sitting in little groups of women, and we're talking about, we want many more women on these standards bodies. There are very few women on these standards bodies. So I brought up the thought about why are there not more women on standards bodies? And we would love for you guys to join these standards bodies. It's good for your own career, and it's good for the standards bodies to get your ideas and thoughts, because you've been there on the front line. What will make sense. And there was only one word that kept coming back in each of the different groups. It's too intimidating. And we wondering, why is it intimidating? You guys are experts in the field, and you've done this for so many years. Why are you intimidated? And the answer was everyone had the same feedback. Those guys who run those standard bodies, they literally command the stage and they talk about all this technology, all this stuff. We wouldn't even know where to begin. And so that's when we opened the conversation and we got feedback and inputs from each of the different tables of how to change that and not make it much more welcoming. Like things like the feedback that we got. Let's have the minute somebody says they want to be part of one of the standards bodies, let's have a welcoming group that would, there would be a welcoming session to introduce them to everybody, and then assign them a mentor to give them a voice. So when, let's say, standard body A had this strong male leader, they need to, make this woman, new member feel very welcome, and then give them a voice to speak. Hey, do you have anything to add to this topic? We'd love to hear from you, and get them to speak up. So, we took all that back and we said, here's what we're going to do in these standards bodies to welcome more women into it. Monica, any additional thoughts on that?
I think for Chandy and I think for that, because we were both, we split up obviously and sat with the different groups. And to Chandy's point, these are very intelligent young ladies who are contributors to the industry. And when we sat there, and sometimes, you get down in the weeds and you forget to look for all the little kernels. And I'm like, we look at each other after we're comparing notes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Chandy, this is such an easy fix. But maybe nobody had ever asked the question of why they weren't feeling confident enough. So it's just as simple as offering a welcoming opportunity. But they have so much to contribute, and their voice had been silent to that point. And I'm like, we are, as an industry, we're missing the buck. And if we cannot get these young, intelligent, bright young women to contribute to our standards making bodies, then we're going to miss the boat 100%. And so that it was kind of like to hate to coin the phrase, but it was a total aha moment for me. Yeah, it really was
eye-opening.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is then? Why do you think that aha moment happened? Why do you think that has been there? I guess just because it's always been that way, which is the crappiest phrase. That only brings stuff down. But in this sense, it might have been that way, but it's a new day now, and through like mentorship, like you're talking, you're able to help them gain that voice. But what do you think it's been? Then I guess that it's been like
It's the same thing that impacts all our panels. If you look at all our panels, especially technology panels, you put it it's all male panelists, and that's one of the things on our WIN objectives. We have 6 primary objectives, and one of them is to bring much more diversity into all the things that we do, and whether it's on a standards body, whether it's on a panel, whether it's some of these groups that meet for defining things, it's whatever it is,
like
to make it
things like thought leadership. Even it's as simple, Ricardo, to your question. I think it's as simple as that. That is the way it has been. Unfortunately, it is a horrible thing to describe it as, but for those of us who have realized some success in our professional life as women, it's really important for us now to help show the next generation of really bright, intelligent people that, guess what? Use your voice. Your voice can be heard, and you need to have the courage, because it does take courage.
right.
And the responsibility we have in that role is encouraging them and show them how to have self-confidence and be a little more assertive without making it aggressive, and how to really make the impact in the industry that we know that they're capable of doing. But everybody needs a helping hand, and I think through both Chandy and I's experience, although a little bit differently, there's a common denominator in there. Both of us very early on in our lives had strong encouragement in our home life about what our work ethic, we could do anything we wanted as long as we applied ourselves and put hard work into it. I have not changed that message for any single person who's ever worked for me or any member of my family. But some people have not been that fortunate in whatever their circumstances were. So how then can we help them achieve that self-confidence and that courage, if you will, to take the next step? Because it is scary.
Right.
And giving them opportunities. I think that's one of the biggest things we're realizing is all about opportunities. How do you ensure that you give the right opportunities to people? And the other event that I will talk about is, when we kicked off National NENA, Monica made a fabulous speech, as as the new president, and we kicked off WIN, and we had the WIN inaugural event in Orlando at the Gaylord at the restaurant, the top floor. We were given the entire top floor. And little did we know the number of attendees who were going to show up. We had to turn women out by the boatloads because we crossed the fire hazard limit. And it was packed. And the best thing that came out of that was we created these feedback cards. And we said, what do you want to get out of this? What kind of things do you want us to put on? Because we knew we were going to have quarterly webinars, training, all kinds of resources. But what is it that they wanted to see from us? Oh my God, we had, I think in that 1 hour, we got about 150 suggestions of all the different topics of things that they wanted us to present. And every quarter we address one or the other. We take bunch up some things, and then we start presenting those things in our webinars. So, the response has been, overwhelming. It's amazing.
And Ricardo, not to talk over the top of you, because I think you're getting ready to say something. I am so proud of the fact, being a NENA member for as long as I have been, that these webinars that we've been doing through WIN have been some of the very best attended webinars NENA has ever produced. And again, these are just validations that what we started was right on time. People are hungry for this information. They're hungry for these tools because they're investing in their career. They're wanting to make the investment, and they just need a helping hand to do that.
That is good. And I was going to say something just really quick to mention the event. I know exactly what you mean about the amount of people that were there, because I was lucky enough to be like number 5 that was in the room when everyone was getting in. I was taking pictures and I was posting on social media on how this event was going on and how good it was. And when I left, I think I was there for maybe 15, 20 minutes or so. and it was going on for a while, or going to go on for a while. But when I left, I saw the amount of people that were waiting in line to get in, and people that were, saying, well, we're at capacity, you got to hold on. And some people were going out. I was like, I'm leaving right now. Like, you can have at least one of them come in. But I felt bad. Like, I didn't know there was that many people there at the time. And, I was in the back corner talking with different people and stuff. But then I left and I saw that. So I know exactly what you mean and how packed it was, because I was like trying to shimmy out a little bit. But that's what was amazing about it. That, like you said, people are hungry for it, and they were there for this inaugural event, and how special it was for it as well. Now, with the webinars that you're talking about, touch on those a little bit. What are some of the things that WIN is presenting on during these webinars?
Chandy?
So the first webinar I'll start with, which Monica was the keynote, which we loved, was about mentoring and why it's so important for women to make the time, networking, mentoring, why it's important for women to make the time. Everybody gets busy. When I was young, I didn't have the time to do that. I mean, so we wanted people to understand why this was important. So Monica was one of our keynotes, and it just went off really well. It was the highest attended webinar, as Monica just mentioned. And she gave us all kinds of pointers of how it works, when it works. And, Monica, you just go ahead and add to that.
No, we had Christy Williams, who was on the podcast, or I'm sorry, podcast on the webinar with me. But, we were able to provide, because obviously Christy has used a mentor in her professional development. And I just think it was, again, it's those kinds of things that taking their feedback cards and really trying to hone in on the topics that were the most important. And Chandy, I forgot, what was our next webinar after that one?
So we had one on be your own self, and if you don't take care of yourself, you can take care of your 911 customers and people who call in, or your own families. Right. So, how do you make time for yourself, and how do you, and then the third one was maintaining health while you're working at the PSAP. How do you, PSAP wellness benefits, and how do you actually make that happen within your PSAP? So each time we look at different topics that they can take back into their daily lives.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's exciting. Yeah.
There's a lot of information that is coming out of this. How do people find out more about what it is that you're doing with WIN? And is there email? Is there a website or social media, anything like that?
All the above. Chandy, do you want to share the sites?
Yeah. So the first one is, the email is very simple. Of course, if you want specific information and you want the website, address, link, or anything, just send it to win@nena.org. But then there's the NENA platform itself. If you go to the groups, there's a WIN group, and just select that, become a member, and then you'll get all the emails, all the invites. And anyway, our newsletters, the NENA newsletters, has all our events on it. Please do come join us. Bring a friend. We want every woman who has anything to do with 911 to become a member, because our vision is we are the premier resource for women in 911 to empower them to reach their full potential. So that's what we'd like. And one other last thing that I do want to mention is that we've accomplished so much. We've got a fantastic WIN 911 committee. We've got leaders from all the different areas who are on our committee. We've done all this with zero funding. So if you can imagine, this is where we're at with no funding. If we ever to get any kind of funding, where we could take this, it's just been, amazing. The potential is endless.
Yeah.
Well, and I was gonna ask, going into the wrap up of this episode, where is it that you see WIN going in the future? You kind of touched on it just a moment ago, but where else do you see this? How do you see this continuing to grow? With webinars, mentorship, just everything. What is the vision? Where do you see it going even further than that?
for me, and I'll speak selfishly, and I know Chandy will share, like our whole kickoff, our whole desire was that we created a safe place where women in the industry could come and share their stories and share their experience and get tools to help them navigate this profession, whatever it is, whatever side of the profession you're on, and then help them be the very best they can be in whatever path they choose. That is my vision. I know that's kind of grandiose, pie in the sky, but I don't think I will not be satisfied until every woman in this profession is a part of this group, because everybody has something to contribute to the conversation.
Nice.
No, well said, Monica. And that's, see, right now we are a NENA group. So it is NENA members primarily. That's the way the platform's been set up, because again, without any funding, we have to make sure we're using all the tools that we have. And NENA's been they've been amazing to work with. So, but to get others outside of NENA, other women to actually join us, we started working with the folks who were running Navigator 2020. Monica and I were going to go speak there, but we'll be speaking instead at the Vegas convention next year. But basically, the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch, they are having a blog post pretty soon that's going to go out to their 70,000 member organizations in 48 countries to say that this is what we're doing, and how we could work together to expand some of at least all our resources and our ideas and thoughts all around the world. Like Monica just said, this is not a selfish little, let us get better here. Let's do this. We want everybody to benefit.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both very much for being on this episode. We had no technical difficulties. Everything is fine. Yeah. But again, thank you so much, both of you, for being on and just sharing your information, your stories, where you come from, what it is that you're doing with WIN. All of it is very inspiring, and I know that those watching and listening will also find and get something out of it as well. Thank you both for everything that you're doing for the webinar.
One last thing
for NENA as well.
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
Hashtag women in 911. We use that for spreading the message. So please use that, get our word out.
Perfect. All right. Excellent. Make sure.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. Mm-hmm. Thanks for letting us have an opportunity to tell our story. Thank you.
Course.
Thank you so much.
I will be right back with the both of you here. And again, thank you very much for being on. And that was excellent. We finally got a chance to do this episode. I'm not sure how long ago it was that we recorded this, the first one. I think actually it was around January when we did that, just this past January. But this was excellent. Finally to be able to get them on to talk about their stories, their background, and WIN, and what they're doing for women in 911, especially for the mentorship. It is very important. Thank you very much for joining me. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. If you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, here it is, wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This episode, along with all the others, the shows will always be free. However, if you're looking for bonus content, any way to support the podcast, you can head over to patreon.com/WTT podcast. We have discounts to the store, t-shirts, swag, bonus episodes, ad-free access a week early on episodes through Patreon. Again, it's patreon.com/WTT podcast. And thank you so much for the support. I wouldn't be able to do this without all of you. So thank you so much for the support, whether it be Patreon, support in general, and of course for the sponsors. Thank you all very much. This can be viewed on Facebook, YouTube, and listened to 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone.